I hope you're having a good time right now. The purpose of this lesson is to review over some information that we have covered during the school year, making sure that we don't forget the things that we learned during the school year, make sure we continue to review. And so today's lesson that we're going to cover the information regarding the food chain. And we learned a lot of information regarding food chains and food webs at the beginning of the school year last August and September. And so let me go ahead and start with the lesson. So we're going to do a do now. So what you do now, we're going to look at this image, the images. We're going to look at the question, and we're going to look at our answer. And I'm going to give you a few seconds to take time to look at it, and then you're going to review it at home. So the question reads, the food chain shows how A, energy moves through the food chain, B, a consumer moves through the food chain, C, consumers provide nutrients to producers, and D, energy changes from one form to another. And so if we see this food chain, you see that at the beginning of the food chain you have the sun, and then the next thing that receives energy will be the flowers, and then you have a mouse and a snake. So the correct answer to our do now would be A, how energy moves through the food chain. So if you said A, very good. If you said B or C or D, we're going to find out why A was the correct answer later in this lesson. So our guiding question that we always have in class is, how does energy flow in the ecosystem? How do different organisms receive their energy? How does a grass receive this energy? How does us as human beings, how do we receive our energy? How does the birds, the monkey, any living thing, how do they receive energy? Our standard is that we're going to develop models of terrestrial and aquatic food chains to describe the movement of energy among producers, herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and decomposers. So what the state standard wants us to understand is that what is the importance of models? Models are something that we see in our everyday lives. We have role models that are people that we look up to, but we also have models that show us of what something should be. So if you go in the store, or if you have just say if you go to the electronics store, Best Buy, Walmart, they have models of, if you want to buy furniture, on how the items will look. So that's the reason that we use models, or things we look up to or look for. Terrestrial and aquatic, we're going to learn that terrestrial means land and aquatic means deals with water. And then the different type of organisms such as producers, herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and decomposers. And of course, your I can statement. The students will be able to ask questions in order to recognize the types of energy present in a system, highlighting patterns. So, for those who's looking at the screen right now, you have an apple. So I have 3 questions that I want us to look at when we think about this apple. Apple food taste. So just use your imagination. Just imagine if you were eating an apple, or if you had something else in mind. So where did this apple grow? Where did the tree get its energy to grow this apple? And how can this apple be helpful to us? So this apple that we see on the screen, the virtual apple, it was able to grow on the tree, and that the tree got its energy from where? Very good for those who said the sun. Very good, that is correct. But how can this apple be helpful to us? Well, it is helpful to us for several purposes. Most importantly, we get our own energy from eating an apple. It is something that is healthy for us. It produces a high level of energy for us. So now we're looking at this forest ecosystem. So you have different type of organisms that live in a forest ecosystem. There are so many different types of ecosystems in the world we live in. But the one we're going to talk about today is the forest ecosystem. And so if you see on the screen, you have several organisms. You have a deer, you have turtles, you have a mushroom, you have a flower, you have a snake, you have a worm, you have beetles, and you have a turkey. So these are different organisms that live in a forest ecosystem. So you might be wondering, why did Mr. Titus show us this image with all the different organisms? Because these organisms all have different roles or jobs in this forest ecosystem, which means that they do things differently. They get their energy from eating something else or another organism. So what is a food chain? A food chain is the path by which energy passes from one living thing to another. So the example that I have on the screen, you have the sun, flower or leaves, the grasshopper, the frog, and then you have an eagle. So a food chain is able to show you how energy is leaving the sun and how it transfers all the way through those different organisms to the eagle. What's in a food chain, you may ask? You have producers, consumers, and decomposers. So you might ask, what is a producer? What are consumers? What are decomposers? Producers, they produce their own food. So most producers are green plants that use energy from the sun to make food. Now I might ask you, what is the process that plants use to make their own food? Photosynthesis, very good. Producers are at the bottom of the food chain. And there are always going to be a whole lot of producers. Because if you look outside, you see a whole lot of green. And what are those green items? You see bushes, you see grass, you see trees. What are consumers? Consumers hunt, gather, and store food because they cannot make their own food. So I have an example of a tiger. Humans also are consumers because we have to go and get our food from either if we were farmers, we can farm our own food, or we have to go to the store to gather our food. There are three types of consumers. You have herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. How many types of consumers are there? Three. Good job. So herbivores, they are animals or organisms that who eat plants such as they eat plants. And the examples that I have on the screen are grasshoppers, rabbits, squirrels, deer, pandas. Now I would like for you to think of some examples of animals that you think only eat plants. Very good. Next is carnivores. Carnivores are animals who only eat other animals such as tigers, lions, hawks, wolves, cougars. So these are animals or organisms that eat, they get their energy by eating other animals. And these are also only examples of terrestrial food chains, which means there are land food chains. Very good. Next, you have omnivores. Omnivores are animals who eat both plants and animals. So they eat both plants and other animals. So examples that I have are humans and bears. Mr. Tyers love his barbecue nachos. So which means that I eat barbecue comes from either chicken or pork. But also I enjoy salads. So I eat both certain things with animals from animals and certain things from plants. Lastly, you have decomposers. Now I know in Miss Wilson's video, she said something about how decomposers are different from math and science, and she is correct. Decomposers break down. They are microorganisms that are able to break down large molecules into smaller parts. So you're breaking down something. Decomposers return the nutrients that are in a living thing to the soil. So examples that you have mushrooms, you have bacteria. Then also, you have fungi. But then you're also in a aquatic or a water food chain, you have shrimp. Did you know that shrimps are decomposers? I love shrimps too. Very good. So now as a class, let's look at a food chain. So once again, a food chain is a simplified way to look at the energy that passes from producers to consumers. So it passes from one organism to the next. Now on this food chain, you have the sun. All food chains or food webs start with the sun. Now some food chains or some food webs you won't see the sun, but all energy starts from the sun. Plants cannot produce their own energy without getting their energy from the what? The sun. Good job. So you have, on this food chain, you have the plant, which are the producer, green plants. Remember, producers, they are able to produce their own food. Very good. Then you have herbivores, which they only eat plants. That's part of the consumers. And then you have carnivores that eat only what? Meat. They eat other animals. Very good. So as you see, you have the food energy transferring from the sun to the plant, and then the plant to we see a ladybug, the ladybug to a spider, then the spider to the bird to another animal, and then you have the other animal to the snake, or that looks like that's a rabbit, or then the decomposers come in and they break down. And those animals that have died or organism that has died, the decomposers break down and return the nutrients back to the what? To the soil. Very good. So remember, there are two types of food chains that we have to cover in our state standard. The first food chain is aquatic. Aquatic is water-related food chains with sea plants and animals. So you have sea plants and animals. Then you have terrestrial, which means they are land-related food chains with land plants and animals. So aquatic deals with water, terrestrial deals with land. Very good. So What is a food web? We have covered what a food chain is. Food chain say there's a one single pathway of energy is flowing from one organism to the next, while food web shows there's a more realistic way of looking at the relationship of plants and animals in their environment. So it shows you how food webs, there are multiple food chains in the food web. So they show you, food webs show you that there are several food chains linked together. And also in the food web, it shows you that a predator from one food chain may be linked to the prey of another food chain. So we look now, the example that I'm going to provide, we're going to look at a food web. How many food chains can you make from this food web? So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to identify the animals or organisms in this food chain. So first thing you have in this food web, you have a flower, a mouse, a snake, an eagle, and a rabbit. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to look at it. I'm going to give you a few seconds also to figure out how many food chains you can make from this food web. Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to start. Remember, all food chains or food webs start with producers. We do not see the sun in this food web, but we know that producers, which are flowers or plants, get their energy from the sun. We know that they're always at the beginning or at the bottom routine, depending on how you look at it. So you have one, the flower goes to the rabbit, and the rabbit to the eagle. So that's one food chain. Then you have the flower to the mouse, to the snake, to the eagle. That's two food chains. Then you have another example. You got the flower to the mouse, to the eagle. That's three. Then you have the flower to the rabbit, to the snake, and then to the eagle. That's four. So you have four food chains in this food web. So let's look at this. We have the producers, we have consumers. Okay? So what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to see, let's see if we can identify the type of consumers. So the mouse will be considered a what? A herbivore. Why? Because it only eats what? Plants. Very good. The rabbit also will be considered a what? Herbivore. Very good. Why? Because yes, it does. It only eats plants. Because when we look at the food chain, the arrow represents the flow of energy. And we see that the energy is flowing from the flower to the rabbit or to the mouse. Now we look at the snake. What do you think the snake is? We know it has to get its energy from what though? From eating the mouse or the rabbit. So which means that it is a what? Carnivore. Very good. And last thing is the eagle. The eagle too has to get its energy from eating what? Other organisms. But the question you have is, what type of consumer is it? It is also too a carnivore. Very good. Alright, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at this video. Oh, not this video, but the activities on this video about food chain. You're going to put in, get some notebook paper, get a pencil. You're going to, and yes, like we always say, everything is graded. You are going to put You're going to put these words as fill in the blank. You're going to write the sentences and you're going to put the words that's in the blank. I'm going to give you a few minutes, and actually what you should do, go ahead and pause the video so it give you enough time to write down what you need to write down. Now, if you have unstopped the video and you're getting ready to look, we're getting ready to start it back up. So this grade is not everybody is going to get a 100 for doing a good job on it. But we're actually about to get our answers on the next. I'm getting ready to show us our answer. So if you need to pause, and actually you don't need to pause the video, I'm going to read the answers out. So making sure that hopefully that you got all these correct the first time, but if not, that's why it's good to always study and always good to review. So it says a food chain is an illustration that shows how energy is passed from one living thing to another. Number 2, a food web is an illustration that shows how animals are connected in the search for food within the ecosystem. Number 3, green plants can make their food in their leaves. A living thing that can make food with energy from the sun is called a what? Producer. Good job. Animals get their energy by eating plants and animals. A living thing that needs to eat to obtain energy is called a what? Consumer. Mushrooms cannot make their own food and they do not eat food. Instead, they get their energy by what? Breaking down and absorbing dead organic matter. These type of living things are called decomposers. A leopard seal eats fish and penguins. It never eats plants. It never eats plants. Since the leopard seal eats only meat, it is called a carnivore. It is a carnivore. Very good. Now, number 7 says a deer eats grass and plants found in a habitat. Since the deer eat only plants, it is a herbivore. Very good. Last thing, number 8, a raccoon eats other animals like crayfish as well as plant life. Since the raccoon eats both plants and animals, it is a what? Omnivore. Very good. Very good. Like I said, you're doing an excellent job paying attention. Proud of you who complete the assignment. At least, like I said, I think about examples of in order for you to have stronger muscles, you have to work out. You cannot just expect for your muscles to grow without you working on out. So that's the purpose of this video. It's the purpose of reviewing food chains, food webs. Because if you know it now, whenever you see it again later in your different grade level, you'll know the information. You won't be lost and confused. All right, so now we're going to it's another quick activity. So on the back of your paper, you can go ahead and do this one, food web. So like I said with the other one, if you want to, you can write down the questions and the answers. So right now, this is the time that you can pause the video again. And when you get finished, after you pause it, you can press play. So then you can start the video all over again. Welcome back. So you have a food web shows how energy is passed on from one living thing to the next. It shows that feeding habits of different animals that live together in an ecosystem. In the food web pictured on the left, energy is passed from the grass to the mouse to the snake to the hawk. Producers are living things that make their own food with sun and air. The producers are pictured at the bottom of the food web. Consumers are living things that eat other living things. So the direction tells us, says use the food web in the picture above to answer the questions. Name the living things. Number one, name the living things in the food web that are producers. So the living things that in this food web, there are two living things. Remember, producers are always at the bottom, and it's a whole lot of them. There is always going to be a whole lot of them in the real world. So the answer to number one, I'm sorry. We're going to go to the next slide, and you'll be able to have all the answers. So you have the grass and the wildflowers. Number two, name the living things in the food web that are consumers. The answers, we look at the food web. Remember, the arrow shows how energy is flowing from one organism to the next. So we know that producers are at the beginning of the food chain. So next on the food web, you have the rabbit, the mouse, the snake, and the hawk. They are the consumers because they have to get their energy from what? Eating other things. Number three, which living things does the snake eat? So the arrow is pointing towards the snake from two directions, two places. That tells me that the snake eats those things. So the snake eats the rabbit and the mouse. And number four, which living thing does the hawk eat? The hawks eat three things. We look at the example. The arrow is pointing towards the hawk, but three things are pointing towards the hawk. So what are those three things? The hawk, the mouse, and the snake. And number five, what is eaten by the rabbit? There are two things: grass and wildflowers. Very good. Very good. So as I get ready to close out this lesson, the last thing we have is our ASIC ticket. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to look at it. In this picture of a food chain, which organisms is the herbivore? Remember, the herbivore there's organisms that only eat what? Grass. So the answer choices you have is snake, eagle, grass, and caterpillar. So we look at this food chain, and also this food chain does not have any arrows. But we see how, if you need to, you can draw an arrow to help you to see how energy is going from the sun to the grass, from the grass to the caterpillar to the mouse to the snake, and the snake to the eagle. So we look at it, what organism gets its energy from eating only grass? The correct answer is D, caterpillar. Very good, you chose that. Why did you choose that? Because the caterpillar is eating grass. The caterpillar is eating grass. That's how it gets its energy. Now, the caterpillar is a consumer, but what type of consumer is it? It's a herbivore. Very good. Now, if I ask you what kind of consumer is the snake, you would tell me a what? You'll tell me that it is a carnivore. Why? Because it only eats meat. Very good. So, today in the class, in the lesson, we talked about food chain. We spoke about the food webs. We talked about the importance of knowing this information. We also talked about the different types of consumers, what's included in a food chain, food web. We know that there are producers, there are consumers. Okay, what type of consumers? You have herbivores, they only eat grass. Carnivores, they only eat meat. And omnivores, they only eat what? They eat both plant and meat. Very good. And they also learned about decomposers. Decomposers break down nutrients and they return them back to the soil. Very good. I hope you learned a lot. Again, I hope you were able to review this information. And I'm looking forward to our next lesson.